This is Sky Revolutions, a fairly new 1.19 questing mod pack from the creator of Project Sacrifice. However, unlike Project Sacrifice, which was a previous Skyblock that we played based around blood magic, this one here is much more tech-based. As you can see on the left-hand side here in the quest book, we do have mechanism, we do have thermal expansion, we do have, I believe, a little bit of pneumatic craft, and of course we have some create as well. And as you might guess, this quest book here starts up at the top with the information quest line. It says, Lore, what happened? You woke up and realized that the whole world is gone, and you have a small island under your feet. You think maybe the second page contains some more information. Lore information is on the last quest of each chapter. So you woke up. You might wonder where you are. You got chosen as my test subject to see how advanced human beings can get. You got teleported to another universe. If you want to get out, you need to create the most advanced thing our civilization has achieved, the vibration mechanism. If you manage to create it, I'll let you get out of here. And so this is a fairly interesting mod pack here. We start in our inventory with, of course, the quest book. We do have a backpack. By default, you can press B to open that backpack and store some extra stuff. We also have a tempad and a temporal pouch. Very interesting starting items. The temporal pouch is going to allow us to speed up blocks and items as we go forward. The way that it works is you hold it in your inventory, and as you can see, every second that we have it in our inventory, it gains an extra second worth of time, and then we can essentially spend that time to make stuff faster in the future. And then the tempad here is kind of a teleportation device that I will show off a little bit later on because it's kind of going to be a bit difficult for me to show it off given how small our current platform is. And so real quick, the first thing I am going to do is I'm going to press M, and I'm going to go ahead and turn off this minimap in the top right-hand corner by setting the visibility to 0 because I do not see much of a point in having a minimap on such a small skyblock. But the very first quest in the introduction quest line here is to get some living root using Botania. So this is the default Botania Garden of Glass skyblock start, and down here we have some living root which we can harvest. And if we go ahead and harvest that living root, we can then use this to craft our first sapling. Now, I do think that we should probably try and be a bit more diplomatic about this. I think if we go back up to the top, we should be able, and this is going to be tricky without a piece of dirt here. Let me do something like this. If we go back up to the top, I do believe we can shift right click to get these pebbles, and then we can use these pebbles to craft ourselves some cobblestone. Getting the cobblestone initially here is going to allow us to build a bit of a makeshift platform under this platform, which is then going to allow us to kind of harvest all of the dirt and all of the living root without having to worry about any of it falling into the void. Now, as far as I'm aware, there's usually no limit on how fast you can right-click here. It's usually just as fast as you can click, which also means if you do have some kind of clicker, you can shift right-click very, very quickly if you have an auto-clicker of any kind. And then from there, I believe we also have the mod installed that allows you to hover over a stack of items that can be crafted, and if you press K, it will auto-craft them into whatever they can be crafted into. And when I say can be crafted, I mean that they can be crafted inside of your internal inventory. So anything that can be crafted like this, you can just auto-craft by hovering over it and pressing K. Pretty nifty stuff. And so now, over here, what we should be able to do is take this cobblestone and kind of build out a bit of a platform down here like this, and then using this little new platform, we should be able to gather all of the living root and probably all of the dirt as well, because that's going to allow us to spread out our platform and grow trees just that little bit faster. One thing I will do real quick is I will replace the dirt I took out there just to allow us to build our platform a bit further out in this direction. We do have FTB Ultimine. If you go to Options, Controls, Keybinds, and type in Ultimine, you can change this button. By default, it's set to something else. I've set it to a button on my mouse, and if you hold that down and break a block, it will break all of the same kind of blocks that are connected to that block. And if we do that with all of our living root here, we're going to have more than enough to make at least one sapling, but ideally multiple saplings going forward. And on top of that, we can also do the same thing with the dirt here as well. You'll see at the top that the box doesn't quite go up to the grass. It's only going to break the actual dirt here, and that allows us to get 23 dirt and 31 of these roots right off the bat. And then from there, we can just kind of swim back up to the top, and we don't really have to worry about what's going on down there, at least for a little while. And so let's make this platform a little bit bigger. The recipe is a little bit confusing here. It looks like you need a crafting grid. You don't. It is a shapeless recipe, and so you can do something like this to get a sapling. And then from there, we can plant this down, and we do have the mod that allows us to shift to make saplings grow faster. One thing to bear in mind if you've not played on this Garden of Glass map before is that you do start with this mana flash at the top left, which does give you light, but also gets in the way of trees growing. And so I like to just go ahead and break that. You don't really need it going forward, and it does make getting wood substantially easier. Again, from here, you can go ahead and use the Ultimine key to break all of the logs at the same time. And from there, we can get our first crafting table. And it looks like we don't have any kind of crafting station. That is completely fine. We'll throw that down for now, maybe right about there. And we'll also go ahead and make this platform just a little bit bigger, making sure not to forget that we do have water on that lower level should we need it in the not so distant future. Once we've got a decent platform here, we can, of course, begin getting even more wood. It's probably going to be in our best interest to get some kind of axe right away. Thankfully, the cobblestone that we get early on makes getting a stone axe very easy, and we can kind of skip straight over the initial wood axe. And from here, we have a couple of options of where to go. Our end goal for this section of the quest book is going to be to get andesite. And to get that andesite, we are going to have to do a little bit of botania here. So initially, we are going to need a petal apothecary. We're also going to need to get a composter and some bone meal to get us some floral fertilizer. And so let me quickly go ahead and get ourselves a chest. We'll throw that down for now right about here. I think we'll also go ahead and get a storage drawer as well. That's just a chest with 6 planks, like so. And this can only hold 1 item, but it can hold up to 2,048 of that 1 item. And I think initially we'll use that for cobblestone because we're going to get a fair amount of that going forward. I guess we could also potentially do the same for wood as well. So as we harvest more wood from our trees, we can always go ahead and place those directly into their own storage drawer. If we do something like this, we can use that for oak logs going forward as well. And if we want to make a composter, the composter is fairly straightforward. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it is just some slabs like this. It is indeed. And we'll throw that down, I guess, right about here. And of course, this can be used to get us some bone meal. However, we are going to need to get some organic matter to place into that composter. Now, if you've played a Skyblock before, I think the best way for us to do that is going to be using a crook, which is just 4 sticks crafted together. And if you break leaves with a crook, not only do you get a lot more saplings than you would normally get, you also get these silkworms as well. These are super useful, especially early on, because we can smelt them into a source of food. And so if we go ahead and place some kind of fuel in there, I guess for fuel, we might as well use some of these planks here. Boom, boom, and boom. We can place those in. Those are going to cook into cooked silkworms, which are not the best source of food in the world, but are better than nothing and are more consistent than these apples. Over here, we can now use our saplings to begin trying to get bone meal, although we're not really getting as much progress on that composter as I'd like. Thankfully, you can grow quite a lot of trees and break quite a lot of leaves very quickly in this pack, and so hopefully getting bone meal isn't going to take us too long. You can also put silkworms in here as well, which is very useful. And once we have our first piece of bone meal, that completes the quest, but I do believe if we want to make floral fertilizer, we're going to need to get at least 5 bone meal, because the recipe for the floral fertilizer requires 1 bone meal and then 4 dye. There are a few ways that you can get this. You could use the bone meal on the grass to try and get poppies or dandelions to get yellow or red dye, but I think the easiest and most consistent way is just to craft the bone meal into white dye. Once you have 4 white dye and 1 bone meal, you can then go ahead and use that to make the floral fertilizer. The Twitch chat is asking if we have wooden shears. Unfortunately, we do not. There are living wood shears, and we might be able to get those sooner rather than later, but there's no wooden shears available, and so unfortunately, we can't just take all of the leaves and use those in the composter. I think we are going to have to stick to saplings for the time being, but I really don't think it's going to take us too long to do that, actually. I think we should be able to get all the bone meal we need fairly quickly. Alright, so not too long later, we now have 4 more bone meal. We're going to take 3 of those, craft them straight into white dye, and then from there, we can craft the 1 bone meal with 4 white dye. Again, this is a shapeless recipe. You can put these anywhere you like, and in return, we get 3 floral fertilizer. This is going to allow us to grow mystical flowers of all different colors. So right here, we got some cyan, some blue, and some black mystical flowers. You can get all 16 of the Minecraft colors of flower. You can also make a floral pouch, this guy right here, the flower pouch, to allow you to hold all of the flowers without them clogging up your inventory. To do that, we are going to need some wool. Thankfully, wool should be pretty straightforward for us to make. If we quickly grow a tree here, or a few trees, we can then take these silkworms, right-click them onto the leaves of this tree, and that will then infest those leaves. And what happens is the infestation progress slowly goes up until it hits 100%. Once it hits 100%, it will then begin to spread to adjacent leaves, as you can see up here, and then those will begin to get infested, and you can put multiple of these silkworms in to make that happen faster. And as soon as a leaf is fully infested, you can then break it, ideally I think with a crook, like this, to get string. Nice. And once we have all of the string from this entire tree here, we should be able to then go ahead and craft that string into wool. Not only is that going to allow us to make a bed, if that's something we want to do, it's also going to allow us, of course, to make this flower pouch, which I think is going to be tremendously useful for holding all of our flowers in the early game. You'll see this does get very fast, very quick, and it looks like we are pretty much good to go here on acquiring basically all of this string. The hardest part is just making sure our crook doesn't break, and also making sure that we don't have too many leaves that are too far away. For me, that's pretty good. That's a lot of string, to the point we could probably do with getting another storage drawer for string as well. I do believe this works in terms of making 4 chests at once, so you can get quite a few of those without having to craft all of the planks. And then for now, we'll do something like this, and we'll also do something, I think, like this and like this. Cool. By the way, for those who don't know, left click to take one item out, shift left click to take a stack of items out, and then if you just left click once, you put one item in. If you left click twice, you'll put all of that kind of item in your inventory into the drawer. Pretty nifty stuff. Back over here, we should now be able to make our first flower pouch. We just need 1 mystical petal. You get mystical petals by crafting down the mystical flowers into their petal form, and then boom, we can get ourselves a flower pouch. We can then put our flowers in here, and the added benefit is that now going forward, whenever we pick up a mystical flower, it will automatically go into the flower pouch instead of going into our inventory. For example, if we were to go ahead and quickly chop down this tree that we have right here, we should then be able to right-click down our floor fertilizer, like so. And now if we pick all of these mystical flowers up, instead of clogging up our inventory, they're going to go straight into the flower pouch. Nice. The one downside of these leaves is that they don't decay when you break the tree beneath them. And so I think we are going to have to go and try to reach up and grab those. Perfect. So the idea of these flowers and these petals is that they're going to allow us to craft other flowers from Botania, more functional flowers. The first flower that we're looking to make here is the pure daisy. To do that, we first have to get a petal apothecary. The petal apothecary, if I'm not mistaken, is basically just cobblestone. It is indeed. It does require 1 petal. Thankfully, we do have 1 petal left over from the flower we crafted earlier, and that is our petal apothecary that we can place down for now right about here. The petal apothecary does require water to work, and if we're going to make the pure daisy in particular, we do also have to get some white petals. This recipe has been tweaked. We need white petals, we need dust, and we need white dye. This is kind of indicative of the whole pack. One of the reasons that I chose to play this pack is a lot of the recipes for a lot of the items here have been tweaked to make it more interesting. They're not all vanilla, they're not all standard recipes. You have to move through certain mods to get to other mods, and as we progress forward, different things get a little more tricky, and you have to have set things up in certain ways to make it work, which I think makes for a more interesting pack. For example, right here, we do have to get some dust, and we have to get some more white dye. The dust is fairly easy to get. If I'm not mistaken, we need to get a cobblestone hammer, which might look something like this. It does indeed. This stone hammer can be used to turn cobblestone into gravel if you place it down and break it with the hammer. You can then turn gravel into sand if you place it down and break it with the hammer, and you can also get dust if you place it down and break it with the hammer. Nice. That dust, of course, is what we need to make this pure daisy. The only thing we're missing now is 1 white dye, which is perfectly fine. If we put some more silkworms into here, that gets us a bone meal. That bone meal gets us white dye. And so that's everything for the pure daisy apart from water. So there are 2 things we can do here, if I'm not mistaken. The first is a Botania feature. I'm fairly certain if you take bowls, right-click those bowls on a water source block, it should give you water. It does. Look at that. We got a bowl of water. From there, we then need to get back up to the top. So real quick, let me do something like this, perfect. You can then take that bowl of water and throw it into the petal apothecary. You can then right-click to take the bowl out, and we have water. Cool. And so from here, we can put in the white dye, we can put in the dust, and we then need to put in 2 mystical white petals. For that, we are going to have to first get a mystical white flower, because right now we do not have one. And so we are going to have to use another floral fertilizer here. We did not get one. It is a bit of a chance game. The good news is, of course, that we can make yet more floral fertilizer if we put yet more of our silkworms into here. That's going to get us another bone meal. And now that we have access to the flower pouch here, we can take these mystical flowers, craft them into their mystical petals, and then we can craft those mystical petals into their associated dye. So here we can make blue dye, and then we can use that blue dye to make more floral fertilizer. So we don't have to rely on using bone meal for white dye every single time. Do be careful. If you break anything near the petal apothecary, you'll see that the cyan flower did go in there straight away. You can shift right click though to take that out straight away. It just doesn't go into your pouch. You got to drop it and then pick it up again if you want it to go into the pouch, or place it in manually, of course. But we now kind of just need to do this until we get a white flower. Perfect. As soon as we have a white flower, things get much easier, because we can then take that white flower and craft that into 2 white petals. Those 2 white petals are enough, if we drop them in, to make the pure daisy. However, that would mean that if we needed to get more white petals in the future, we'd have to go through the floral fertilizer again to get more of those petals. Instead, if you plant these down, you can then shift to make them grow, and you can just break them to get tall mystical white flowers, these ones right here, that can then be crafted into even more petals. And so once you have one of any kind of flower, you can then go ahead and essentially make an infinite number of any of that color petal, which is pretty nifty stuff, because now over here we can go 1, 2, and you'll see now it says plus a seed. A seed is all we need to finalize this. In terms of getting a seed, I do believe we're going to want to take some bone meal and just plant it like this. That's going to get us a bunch of seeds. We can use these industrial hemp seeds, drop them in, and boom, we get a pure daisy. Nice. That pure daisy can then be placed down, let's say right about here, and this can be used to turn oak logs into living wood. It does work in a 1-block area around it, so a maximum of 8 blocks like this. We can also use it to make living rock as well, which is this stuff right here. This is made by placing stone around it, and so it's probably in our best interest to get some stone cooking up in this furnace. This is one of those situations where we could potentially use our temporal pouch here. You'll see that we have 23.5 minutes worth of time inside of it. If I go ahead and shift right click on this furnace, you'll see that it begins speeding it up. Initially it goes to 2x and it uses a little bit of time, 30 seconds, but we can shift right click again to go to 4x, again to go to 8x, and you'll see it's taking more and more time out of our pouch, but it is making this furnace notably faster. Once we have 8 over here, you'll see that all of our oak logs have been transformed into living wood. We can go ahead, break this, and if we do the exact same thing with regular stone, that's going to transform the stone into living rock, and we can use both the living wood and the living rock to progress down to this andesite. Now, it would appear that we have not unlocked this quest yet, and that is because I did not make a wooden bucket. That is completely fine. I think the wooden bucket requires logs and not planks. It does indeed. We could also, by the way, if you don't want to use the bowl method from Botania, there are better ways of getting water in the early game. Specifically, the oak crucible here, I believe, is much, much easier. The oak crucible is just wood. It's planks, logs, and sticks. It looks like we might actually have everything to make it. We do indeed. If you place this down, and I'm kind of running out of space here already, we could definitely do with making our platform just a little bit bigger. Temporarily, I'm going to do something like this. If you place down the oak crucible, you can then simply place 4 saplings in here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'll see at the top, it's going to begin turning the solid saplings into fluid water. And 4 saplings is all you need to get 1 bucket worth of water, at which point you can use the wooden bucket to either put that straight into the petal apothecary. Alternatively, we could pick up the bucket of water that's down here and use it alongside this bucket of water to make an unlimited source of water for unlimited water going forward. Pretty nifty stuff. Either way, now that we have the living rock here, let me quickly pick up the pure daisy just so that quest completes. Fantastic. We are going to need a standard Minecraft pickaxe, actually, to make this work as well. Let's do something like this and like this. We can then take all of our living rock, and now there's a couple of things that we can make. The first thing that it wants us to make here is a wand of the forest. The wand of the forest is made using these living wood twigs. You'll see by default it tries to make living wood shears. You have to click the little button above the craft, switch it to living wood twigs, and then craft 3 of these. you can then craft these with any 2 color petals. The color petals you choose will affect the color of the wand, but it has no effect on the wand itself. It's just an aesthetic choice. So we'll use the white petals that we have ready for us. And then from there, we now just need a mana pool and a mana spreader. So the mana pool, super easy stuff. It is just 5 living rock, like so. And then the mana spreader does require a few more living wood. So let's quickly do something like this. The mana spreader recipe thankfully has been tweaked in this pack. Normally it requires gold. In this pack though, we just need 1 mystical petal and then 7 of these living wood logs. And hopefully, fairly soon, this is going to transform. It is indeed. We can then break all of these and we should have everything we need if we do something like this and like this to get our first mana spreader. Nice. So this is pretty straightforward here. We can place down the mana spreader, let's say for now, right about here, and we can place down the mana pool, like so. Using the Wand of the Forest, you can link these together. If you put them down how I just have, they will automatically link. You'll see this here highlights the mana pool when I look at the spreader. If it didn't, you can shift right click and then shift right click to change what the mana spreader points at. You'll see now it's no longer connected to this pool, but if you shift right click, it will connect. You can put the mana pool further away, but you will lose more mana the further away you go with the pool. The way that we generate mana here is using the Endo Flame. Initially, this is made, again, in the Petal Apothecary, and it is made using brown petals, red petals, and light gray petals. So real quick, let me dump a bunch of stuff here into this chest just to free up a bit of space here. And then let's see what we have in our pouch. We do not have any red, unfortunately. We do not have any brown, unfortunately. We do have light gray. So the light gray we can take and we can duplicate. The red and the brown, though, we are going to have to make yet more flower fertilizer and take our chances with the bone meal to see if we can get those flowers. All right, so like 9 flower fertilizer later, in that we made 9 and we used 7, we did finally manage to get a red flower. We also have some brown as well, and we of course already had the light gray. So the Endo Flame requires 2 brown, 1 red, 1 light gray. And so if we need 2 brown, let's plant these down, make them grow, and then of course break them. You don't have to be careful with that because you can pick up the pure daisy, that's fine. From there we can take these, craft them down again, and boom. So now over here, we do once again need some water, but of course now we can do this, and then we can go 1, 2, and 1, 2. Perfect. Again, if we grab another seed, any seed will do, we now have an Endo Flame. You place the Endo Flame down somewhere near the mana spreader, and you'll see, again, by default, auto-connected. If not, you can shift right-click and shift right-click to allow those to connect if they're not connected already. And essentially, the Endo Flame here kind of acts like a fuel generator in that it burns fuel to generate power. In this case, the power is mana, and that mana is going to get sent to the mana spreader. You'll see that green bar in the middle there is filling up. Once it fills up enough, you'll see the mana spreader shoots the mana over to the mana pool, and you'll see there's a very, very, very small amount of mana showing in that pool. So what you can do here, it's not part of the quest book, and it's not strictly necessary, but if you craft living rock slabs, you can then craft a diluted mana pool. The diluted mana pool here holds 1/100th of the amount of mana that the regular mana pool holds. So it's 100 times smaller. It's very, very small. Or should I say this is 100 times bigger than this is, but it's going to allow us to see that there is actually mana being generated, and it also lines up more nicely with the recipes in JEI, because if we look at the andesite recipe here, this bar that it shows in JEI is for the diluted mana pool. It's not for the full mana pool. And so you'll see that it requires a very small amount of the diluted mana pool, and it requires 100 times less for the full mana pool. So basically an imperceptible amount of mana is required to turn cobblestone into andesite. And so you'll see here we've got quite a bit of it already. If we take cobblestone and we drop it in, it's going to turn into andesite. Nice. One thing to bear in mind, it does have to be on grass. You'll see here there's a grass block next to this recipe. That's because this has to be on top of grass in order for it to work. It does say in the quest right here as well that it has to be settled on grass. If it's not on grass, it won't turn the cobblestone into andesite. It just won't do anything, and so you do need to make sure that it is set up correctly for it to work. But now we can take as much cobblestone as we like, craft that down, of course, into actual cobblestone, and then we can drop that into our mana pool like so. And so long as we have enough mana, it will make andesite. Nice. So now that we have the andesite, that's essentially this first quest line almost complete, and it does unlock the Industrial Revolution questline here, where we can start with some create. Of course, we can make the andesite alloy here. I do believe that the andesite alloy recipe is the same, and so it does require either some zinc or some iron nuggets, and so we are going to have to get either some zinc or some iron. To do that, we are going to have to get ourselves our first set of sieves and use those to sift, I believe, some gravel to try and get some iron pieces. Before we do that, though, I think we're probably going to want to start by making our platform just a little bit bigger, because right now it is tremendously small. We can make more dirt if we want. The dirt can be made in the composter. That is another recipe that is a quest that we should probably complete. For that, you just need 1 slab and you need 6 planks, like so. That gets an oak barrel. This oak barrel can then be used to turn things like saplings, and I think also silkworms, into dirt. Basically anything you can put in the composter, I believe you can also put into the oak barrel. You'll see at the top there is a number associated with it. Once you get up to 1,000, it will begin transforming whatever you've put into the barrel into dirt. And once you have dirt, you can then plant it down. It's a little slow though, and especially if we want to make the platform much bigger, we're probably going to want to use something else. Speaking of which, I think wood's probably our best bet, and or cobblestone. However, by default, we don't yet have access to this chisel from the Rechiseled mod, and so we can't use any of the nicer looking cobblestones or the nicer looking oak planks. However, if we do get our first piece of iron, we should be able to make this chisel fairly easily. It's just 1 iron and 1 stick. And so if we get that sieve that the quest book wants us to make, we should be able to get our first iron, I think, fairly easily. The sieve, super easy. It is just oak planks, an oak slab, and some sticks. We place that down like so. The initial mesh you make for the sieve does require string, I believe 9 in total, something like this. And once we have that string mesh, we can place it in. By default, I don't think we really get anything useful from the string mesh. And by that, I mean any iron or zinc or copper or anything like that. We only get flint and occasionally amethyst shards. We have to upgrade to the flint mesh to actually get iron, gold, silver, tin, aluminum, etc. For that, we need 6 flint to upgrade this. Thankfully, all we should have to do here is take our gravel and sift that gravel to get flint. Now, it looks like it's not a 100% chance. In fact, it is a 25% chance, and so approximately 1 in 4 gravel is going to give us 1 flint, and so we are going to need about 24 gravel if we want to get the 6 flint required to upgrade this mesh. That is completely fine. One other thing you can do here, by the way, is you can make multiple sieves and use all of them simultaneously. For example, if we make some slabs here, probably don't quite need that many slabs. If we do something like this, let's get rid of those, because that's not at all what I meant to make. And let's also do something like this. That's going to get us 14 more sieves. That's probably too many. Let's start with 8 more. And if we do something like this, we can then make a bunch more of these string meshes, like so, and we can put all these in as well. And essentially now, whenever we try and do any sifting, it's going to use all of them at the same time, essentially making our sifting endeavors 9 times faster. Again, we are kind of running out of space here. We also are running out of cobblestone as well. Let me quickly do one of these, and we'll also, of course, do one of these. You do have to have inventory space for the K button to work, by the way. If you don't have inventory space, it will not work. One other thing we can do, and I promise we're going to make this platform bigger in just a second here, but we can go ahead and make ourselves a cobblestone wand. This is going to allow us to place down the cobblestone faster. If we do something like this, we can place down cobblestone, and then using the wand, we can place down more cobblestone more faster. Like so, up to 9 at a time, I believe. Once we have all that down, we can of course use our hammer and ultimine to break all of that cobblestone into gravel all at once. Chat is asking if this recipe works. Unfortunately, it doesn't. I do believe that sifting has to be used here in order to get the flint. Again, though, thankfully, now whenever you right-click, it's going to use all of the sieves at once, and you'll see that we sifted all of that gravel tremendously quickly. And we do, in fact, now have enough gravel to upgrade one of our meshes here into a flint mesh. The trouble here is that now if we go to sift some gravel in this, it's only going to use the one mesh because we only have one flint mesh. We'd have to upgrade all of them to flint if we wanted to use all of them at the same time. I think that's probably worth doing though. And so I think what we'll do real quick is maybe empty our inventory out a little bit, making sure we always have the temporal pouch on us because we do want that to be constantly gaining extra time. I'm also going to somewhat jankily do this. We'll make the platform bigger in just a second. Whoops, let's do that. We do have the carry-on mod installed, which is what you just saw there. If you shift right click something, you can pick it up and then put it down elsewhere. The good news here is that it does retain its inventory. It makes it very nifty for moving chests around. It also makes it a little difficult sometimes if you're trying to shift right click something and you don't want to pick it up. For that, you've got to be further away before you do the shift right click, if that makes sense. But real quick, I'm going to go ahead and make some more gravel, and we'll use that to upgrade the remaining 8 meshes here from string to flint. Okay, so a little bit more sifting and hammering later. We are now finally at a point where we do need to eat. Thankfully, we do have these silkworms, and we have the apples. The apples are a better source of food, I think, than the silkworms, and so we should probably use those to fill up our hunger a little bit faster. It turns out I was incorrect about the sifting, though, because I thought it would only use whichever kind of mesh you right-clicked on at first. So I thought if I right-clicked here, it would use these 3 meshes, and if I right-clicked here, it would use these 6. However, it turns out it just uses all of them, which is kind of good for us because you actually have a higher chance of getting flint with the flint mesh. It's 2 lots of 25% as opposed to 1 lot of 25%, which makes it twice as likely to happen. Very useful indeed. We also get a bunch of other stuff as well, including all of these different pieces and even more amethyst shards. So we'll put all of these into here. Ideally, we are looking to try and get 4 iron pieces. If we can get those 4 iron pieces, we should then be able to get our first iron ingot, and of course we can use that to hopefully expand our platform out and make it a little bit less cramped, because currently it is extraordinarily cramped. But I think we should now have basically as much flint as we're going to need to upgrade our meshes. So let's put all this stuff away. We do have 50 flint here, and so if we take these out, 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, and 36 should be all that we need to upgrade all of these from regular string meshes to flint meshes. Thankfully, in this pack, they do stack. In some previous versions of Minecraft, they didn't, and that was tremendously unfortunate. But we should now be good to go, and we also have 4 iron pieces that we can craft into 1 raw iron. We can place that 1 raw iron into our furnace with a little bit of fuel, and again, if we use our temporal pouch, we can get ourselves a chisel. Nice. And the benefit of this is that we now have access to a ton of different textures for the wood and cobblestone that just make it look a little bit nicer. For example, if we go ahead and place the cobblestone in, we can pick from all of these textures here. So for example, let's say we wanted this one. You can visualize this in a couple of different ways, which is pretty nifty, and you can turn connected textures on and off. For some, that matters more than others. It doesn't really matter too much for this texture, but for this one here, it looks a lot nicer, I think, with connected textures on. You do want to make sure you turn that on before you take it out, otherwise it won't connect. Alternatively, we can do the exact same thing with planks as well. And there's quite a few planks here that look quite nice. And so real quick, I'm going to go ahead and pick some combination of these textures, and we'll see about making our platform just a little bit bigger. Okay, so I think I'm going to go with these smooth stone tiles. To get these, we can take regular stone, and you can turn it into smooth stone first if you want, but you can just go straight into these smooth stone tiles. I like the ones that are connected, and the Twitch chat has made me aware of a very nifty mod in the pack. I don't know the name of the mod, but if you hold down the Alt key right next to the spacebar, you can bring up this menu right here, and you can pick from any of these pre-existing shapes. Specifically, if you go for floor, for example, you can then change how it works on the left here with the filled or hollow. We want filled, and then you select a starting point. Just for example, let's say here, and then you can select your endpoint, again, let's say here, and it just places down all the blocks. Look at that. Super nifty stuff. I quite like the texture there, especially when it's connected. You can also do the same with like a circle floor. You can change the starting point here from either the middle or a corner. If you set it to the middle, like this, you can then kind of drag out and you get a Minecraft circle. Again, this one's a very small Minecraft circle, but you can, of course, go much further and get a predefined circle. And I think that's probably what we're going to do. I think I'm going to build maybe out using cobblestone in a direction, and then we'll select the center, and then we'll go out and we'll select the outside area, and it's going to build, hopefully, a very large circle of these smooth stone tiles. And the only trouble with making these is that we, of course, have to make stone. We've got to smelt a lot of cobblestone to make that happen. Thankfully, cobblestone is super easy for us to get, and we can very easily make a lot of furnaces to smelt that cobble very quickly, and we also have a bunch of wood. Of course, I do want to make sure that I, disable this so that it's not always trying to place it down like that, which is like that. Let's do this. Not like that. This and this. Thankfully, we can easily move this like so. And so I'm going to go ahead and smelt up a bunch of stone so that we can make, hopefully, a fairly decently sized circular platform here. All right, so a little bit of tree growing and stone smelting later, I think we have enough stone here to make this work. So we're going to go with a 17 wide circle. So it's going to have a diameter of 17. Let me quickly craft up the remainder of these smooth stone tiles here. And then essentially we're going to have the middle here. And then if it's going to be 17 across, that means that we need to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8 is where we're going to actually place that final block. So I've left the final block and the first block empty so that if we press Alt and go to circle, we can then make sure it's set to middle. We're going to put 1 here, and then we're going to go out, and we're going to put the other one down out here, and hopefully that works. Although it looks like there might be a limit as to how far that can go, because it looks like that's not working. If I put that down here, 5, 6, it doesn't seem to want to go past 6. So it turns out 11 by 11 is the max for a circle. You'll see as I drag out here, I can get to 11 by 11, but I can't go further. I can right click that and it will go ahead and place that down. You can also change it, by the way, to replace. If you put that on, I believe it will break the blocks that are there by default and probably put them into your inventory. That is not ideal. I was kind of hoping for a bigger circle here. I was hoping we could go larger than just an 11 by 11 because the 11 by 11, whoops, let's make sure I turn that off, is not particularly large, but that's fine. The good news is that even without that mod, we can still build a larger circle manually. All right, so not too long later, and I've rearranged a couple of bits of the base, and I've also got down a 17 by 17 circle, so it's 17 from here to that end, and the same, of course, on the width. And I've tweaked the center a little bit. We had a slightly uneven center. It was 5 wide and 7 long. And so I've kind of tweaked it to be symmetrical. And we're just missing a little bit of dirt here. Speaking of which, if we want to add an edge to this platform, which I think would look quite nice, we could do with potentially some dark oak. I am a fan of dark oak. And so getting dark oak shouldn't be too difficult. We can get it by sifting dirt. The only trouble is that dirt's a little hard to come by. However, we do now have the ability to get these living wood shears, and so despite them not being great in terms of shears, they break very quickly, we can take the leaves here and use them over in the oak barrel to get ourselves dirt, hopefully a little faster. We could also look at making a few more of these oak barrels as well to try and get the dirt just a little quicker, but essentially we can take this, and if we sift it, and I have picked up the sieves, but if we take these and let's say for now set them back up kind of over here like this. We did lose a flint mesh when we were trying to break and replace everything. That is completely fine because we do still have more than 6 flint, and of course we also have more than 9 string, and so if we do this and this, we can get ourselves yet another flint mesh. Not that it's necessary though, because we only have the 1 dirt, and we do get a lot of junk here. It's only a 5% chance to get the sapling that we're after, but we only need 1 dark oak sapling, of course, and once we have it, we can then go ahead and get really as much dark oak as we like. And so what I think I'll probably do is maybe re-put down the pure daisy so we can get some more living wood. The living wood, thankfully, super easy to get. That's going to allow us to get even more leaves to make even more dirt, and then we'll keep sifting this dirt. We'll also use some of it, of course, to fill in the ground here, and hopefully, sooner rather than later, we might be able to get some dark oak, and once we do, I think we'll potentially use that dark oak for a bit of a trim around the edge of this smooth stone platform. Once again, the Twitch chat is correct here. I forget every time, but I think the best method for getting more dirt here is via coarse dirt. So if we get a bunch of gravel, which we can do, of course, very easily using our cobblestone and our hammer, we can then craft the dirt with the gravel to get coarse dirt. We can then put the coarse dirt down, and then I'm fairly certain that if we get a hoe, we should be able to ultimine hoe that to allow us to very quickly and easily get more dirt, basically turn gravel into dirt. So over here, if we do this, it turns the coarse dirt into regular dirt. If we ultimine do it, we can then ultimine pick up all of the farmland, and it gets picked up as regular dirt. That is substantially faster than making the living wood shears and using those over and over again, because it just allows us to essentially duplicate our dirt every single time, so long as we have the gravel. And of course, the gravel is super easy for us to get. And so we can just keep doing this, keep doing this. We could probably do with a shovel to allow us to pick this up a little faster before things transform like that. But for the most part, this works quite well. Also, another reason why I am not able to pick all that up is because of the fact that I I'm hungry. And if you run out of hunger, you not only start to take damage, but of course, you also are not able to use your FTP Ultimine, which is not ideal. Thankfully, we do have these apples, and they actually have a nifty little animation. I don't know if you saw that at the bottom there, but the apple gets eaten down to the core in the hotbar, which is something I've not seen before. Either way, we now have quite a lot of dirt and the ability to get a lot more very quickly, and so hopefully we should be able to fill in our ground, and we should also be able to get ourselves the required saplings here fairly quickly. I am going to make 2 more chests, and I'm going to move these drawers up, and I'm going to put this chest down right about here, just to allow us to put all of the stuff that we're about to get into one drawer, because we're going to get a lot of seeds and plants and stuff that's going to clog up our inventory real fast, and I kind of want all of that in like one defined space. We also get a lot of these pebbles as well, like these andesite pebbles and basalt pebbles, diorite pebbles, calcite pebbles, deep slate pebbles, and stone pebbles. There's a lot of pebbles that we're going to get also. So let me do this. Let's make sure we keep the temporal pouch, and let's quickly see about sifting all of this dirt. I think already I do see some saplings, and look at that, dark oak is on the list. Perfect, fantastic. So we'll go and we'll dump all of this into here. This will probably come in useful at some point in the not so distant future, but for now, we can take our dark oak sapling, and annoyingly, we can't grow it. At least I don't think we can. Usually you require 4 of these in order to get them to grow. However, what we can probably do, because I don't think this is going to work, what we can probably do though is use a botany pot to get this to grow faster. Again, be careful growing stuff around the endo flame because it will start burning whatever you put down if it's flammable, like saplings, like logs, like sticks. But if we take this and place it into a botany pot, we should be able to start growing the dark oak automatically, and we should get extra dark oak saplings as a result, and it is also a quest to complete this first quest line. These, thankfully, are not too difficult for us to make. To get a botany pot, we just need 5 terracotta and 1 flower pot. The flower pot, of course, just bricks. To get the terracotta, we need to get clay. Clay we can get by putting dust, which is this stuff here that we get by hammering gravel into sand and then sand into dust. We can put the dust into a barrel with water. So one of the first things that we should definitely do here is we should grab our bucket, which unfortunately does seem to have a durability on it, but for the most part, that's fine. Then let's also go ahead and pick up this water source block down here. And then from there, let's also see about replacing down that dirt just so we're not left permanently with a hole in the ground. Like so. But from there, we're going to make an unlimited water source. Let's put that down probably right about here. If we do this, this, and this, we can look at putting our unlimited water source down here. I am going to grab a couple more smooth stone tiles, and we'll quickly do something like this and like this to allow us to kind of fill this in so we don't have a giant hole in the platform. And just like we did before, if we take some regular oak saplings over in the oak crucible, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's going to allow us to get another bucket of water, which of course we can then put down right about here. That's going to give us an unlimited source of water in the center, which we can then directly place into the oak barrel. And then using the dust here, we should be able to get clay. We're going to want a lot more dust to make this happen, and so whilst we wait for that water to come in, let's do something like this. Using our wand, we can place down a couple of blocks, although we are now completely out of wand durability, and that's not our first wand of the playthrough either. Thankfully, placing down a small amount of sand or gravel is not particularly difficult, and then if we do something like this, we should now be able to take the water out of here, place it down here, take our unlimited water source, place it in the oak barrel, and then if we right-click the dust, we get clay. Nice. And so essentially now we have a system that is going to allow us to make dust. This wooden water bucket does only have a certain number of uses, which is very interesting. We need 6 of these to make the botany pot. However, we need a 7th, of course, in order to actually get some clay balls, which sometimes you can craft, but most of the time you do have to place it down and then break it. Fantastic. We can then smelt those up to get regular brick for the flower pot, and we can smelt the other clay directly into terracotta for the botany pot. And the botany pot is just going to automatically grow the saplings. Now, to make it fully automatic, we would have to get a hopper botany pot, and I have a feeling that right now we're probably not going to have what it takes to make the hopper botany pot because we don't have access to a hopper. We could try and get to a hopper if we got 5 more iron. That's just going to require a fair bit more gravel sifting though, and quite a bit more actually, because the odds of getting a piece of iron from sifting with the flint mesh are only a 10% chance. And so every 1 in 10, you get 1 piece. And of course, you need 4 pieces to get an iron ingot. So that's 40 gravel. If we need 5 iron, that's like 200 gravel that we'd have to sift just to get the hopper, which is not ideal. And so I think whilst we can go ahead and set this up, if we do something like this and we do something like this, that's going to get us the botany pot. We can then, I believe, take a piece of dirt like so and place that into the botany pot. Let's put it down over here like this and like this. We can then put the dark oak in. That dark oak is going to grow slowly but surely. I also do believe there are a few things we could do here. I think we can bone meal it if you happen to have the bone meal to do that, which we might be able to do if we do something like this. Never mind, that's nowhere near enough silkworms. Alternatively, though, I do believe we could also just use our temporal pouch to get this going. And you'll see that is growing. Without the hopper, though, we are going to have to manually harvest this. And so once it gets to its full growth stage, we would then right-click with the X, and we get some dark oak logs. Nice. It is all chance-based here. And so looking at the dark oak, if we look at the botany pot for it, you can see that with regular dirt, you can get dark oak saplings, sticks, and dark oak logs. The sapling is a 15% chance. The logs are a 100% chance, and you get between 2 and 4. We got lucky. We got 4 of them, which is pretty nifty. I think what we're going to do is we're going to craft those into these kind of sideless dark oak logs. And I think we might put those down kind of around the outside of the platform just to give it a bit of contrast to what we currently have. And so that's kind of the plan, but I think we should probably put something down so we don't lose all of them. But at the same time, I think that we should also maybe pivot to looking at getting our resource production automated first so that we can then kind of come back and get the hopper and we don't have to do this so manually as opposed to standing here using all of our temporal pouch time and all of our physical real world time trying to get all of the dark oak logs, because right now it's going to be a bit of a pain to do that, at least without all of the saplings. And so instead, we can pivot back to the Industrial Revolution. Real quick, though, before we do that, there are just 2 quests left in this section of the quest book. There is the Akashic Tome. This guy, I actually don't know how we make it. It is made, by crafting 1 pebble in your inventory. That seems incredibly doable. If we just take 1 regular stone pebble and just craft that, we get a tome. Never mind, it has to be a Botania pebble. So if you shift-click the pebble here, you get a Botania pebble. If you do it via sifting, you get a different kind of pebble. That's fine. In here, there's the tome. Fantastic. We'll stick that in our chest. And then finally, one of my favorite mods that exists, we do need to get ourselves 2 more pieces of sand. If we do this and we do this, we can then craft those 2 pieces of sand like so to get 1 piece of snad. And with that, we have completed the first chapter of the quest book here, completing the introduction. The snad here just allows you to grow things like sugarcane faster. You place it down and it will grow things like sugarcane faster than they normally would grow. Speaking of which, did we get any sugarcane over here? We didn't. We got some bamboo. I do think that sugarcane is something you can usually get by sifting the dirt. Never mind, we have to sift sand in this pack to get sugarcane, a 5% chance. Interesting. That is completely fine. Eventually we'll get some sugarcane that we can then use with our snad, but this snad is just going to allow us to grow that sugarcane faster than default, because by default, you actually don't get a speed bonus from using sand over dirt. Real quick, just a quick test there to see if we were going to get any more dark oak saplings. We're not, unfortunately. That is completely fine. And so, whoops, this is not the right chest, Isaac. All of this stuff wants to go in up here. So now, over in the Industrial Revolution questline, the first quest, of course, is that andesite alloy. My first question is, do we have enough to make this happen? The answer, unfortunately, is no. We don't have any iron pieces left, and we only have 3 zinc pieces. And so the first thing we are going to have to do here is just do a little bit more gravel sifting. We probably should have put this a little further away from the edge, given how some of our other items just kind of flew off. Let's see, though. If I put all of these back in here, do we have enough iron and or zinc? We don't have enough iron. However, we do have enough zinc. And so if we do this and this, that's going to get us our first zinc ingot, which we can, of course, craft into zinc nuggets. And those zinc nuggets are going to allow us to use our andesite that we got earlier from Botania to get our first andesite alloy. Nice. We can then craft 2 andesite alloy into a shaft. The shaft is going to be very important for progressing here with Create, and we can also make andesite casing. This, I believe, is made by placing down a log and then we either just right-click on it or we strip it, then right-click it. Yeah, we do have to strip it first. That is completely fine. Nice. And one of the first things we're going to want to work towards here is getting this sifter, which is from a Create add-on mod called Create Sifter. And essentially, this is going to allow us to automate sifting. To make this, we're just missing some planks. We're missing a cogwheel, which is just a plank, and one of the pre-existing shafts that we made. That's fine. Thankfully, you do get 8 shafts at a time. And so if we do this and this, we get ourselves a sifter. The sifter for now I'll put down right about here. This is useful because the odds are higher with this sifter. For example, if we look at using gravel in this sifter, the regular mesh, as we saw before, is only a 10% chance to get an iron piece, of which you need 4 to get an iron ingot. With the sifter from Create, if we have a brass mesh, we get a 25% chance to get a crushed raw iron, and that smelts directly into 1 iron ingot. So not only is the chance higher, you also need a quarter as many sifts to get an actual iron ingot, which is huge. It's a big upgrade. And so we do need to get either a zinc mesh or a brass mesh. The zinc mesh, not quite as good. The brass mesh is substantially better. For this, we need 1 brass ingot and 8 sticks. And for that, we have to start on this right-hand side of the quest line. It wants us initially to make an engineer's hammer, which does normally require an iron ingot. Yeah, we need 2 iron ingots here to get the engineer's hammer, as well as 2 sticks and 1 string. The sticks and the string, super easy. 2 iron ingots, though, a little bit expensive. So we are going to have to do a little bit more gravel sifting. And so let me go ahead and take even more of this cobblestone. By the way, quick tip that I was told by the Twitch chat is that if you are crafting the cobblestone pebbles down, one thing you can do is you can press Shift K and it will do all of them all at once. That makes getting more cobblestone quickly just even easier than it already was. And about a stack and a half of gravel sifting later, we now have quite a few iron pieces actually. Let's take those and let's get those smelting over in here. Once again, just to make things a little quicker, we can do something like this and use our temporal pouch to make that nice and fast. As soon as we have 2 pieces of iron, that should be everything for our engineer's hammer. So now, to get brass, we need to create it inside of the alloy kiln. The alloy kiln is made using 8 kiln bricks. The kiln bricks here are thankfully not too bad. It's just sand and regular bricks. Again, we need 8 of those in total, so we need 8 sand and 8 bricks. That should not be a problem. We've got 7 dust here, and of course, using our bucket and our barrel, we should be able, let's make sure we do get all of the clay by standing directly on top of this barrel, because items seem to have a tendency to fly off in a bunch of different directions in this pack. So we'll do something like this. We'll get all of the clay, and then if we do 2 of those, that's going to get us the 8 clay for the 8 bricks. Again, we'll throw those into here. We could spread them out, but it's probably going to be faster if we just do this, and we are getting even more time. We've got 1 hour and 20 now inside of our pouch. And then from there, we just need some sand. Again, 8 in particular. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Grab our hammer. And unfortunately, the hammer only has 7 uses left, which is very unfortunate, but we can, of course, make another one very quickly. Boom, and boom. Nice. And that should be everything, I think, for the 8 kiln bricks. If we do this and this, never mind, they need to be sandstone, not just regular sand. That does make it more difficult, but not tremendously so. It just means that we actually need to get like 24 more sand and craft it down, which is completely fine. My wand has broken. People have pointed out, of course, that you can use the cube option here and potentially do something like this to put all of the gravel down all at once. That does make it a little easier, and it also doesn't require that you constantly make new wands every couple of minutes. And if we do something like that, that should be enough to get the remaining bricks to make the alloy kiln. So the alloy kiln is just a simple little 2x2, whoops, make sure you turn this off. It's a simple little 2x2 multi-block, like so. And to form the multi-block, you just right-click on the front with the engineer's hammer. You can right-click on any side, by the way. Just bear in mind that whichever side you right-click on, it will make that the front of the multi-block. And so now, in here, we should be able to make brass. Brass is a multi-block, I believe, made with nickel and copper. It is indeed. So we need, oh no, it's zinc and copper. Okay, that's actually completely fine. So back over here, we do have enough copper pieces to make 1 copper ingot. And I believe we should also have enough zinc pieces to make a zinc ingot as well. So let's do this. Let's put all of those up here. Boom and Boom, make that nice and fast. We'll put in you as well. And we'll also put in some fuel to make sure it actually gets smelted. And then back over here, if we put both of those in, and of course, you guessed it, yet more fuel, that should smelt down into our first brass. And thankfully, we only need the one brass in order to get our brass mesh. And so if we do something like this and like this, that's going to get us the brass mesh. We can put that brass mesh into here with a right click. And now is where it gets a little tricky though, because in order to use this, we need some kind of rotational energy. The easiest way for us to do it initially, albeit inefficiently, is using the hand crank, which is made with 3 planks and 1 andesite alloy. Boom and boom. And for that, we're also going to need to get a cogwheel, which we saw before is just a plank and a shaft. The cogwheel there is going to allow us to transfer the rotational energy of the hand crank into this wheel and then into the sifter. I do think you could also put the hand crank directly on the bottom of the sifter as well. It's somewhat more awkward, but if you do something like this, kind of pick this up and put the hand crank here, I think you can crank it from the bottom like that. That's a little bit more finicky in my opinion. I think it's definitely easier. If we shift right click to pick that up again with carry on, it's easier, I think, to not lose all your pieces, Isaac. Don't be wasting that silver. It is easier though to just put down a cogwheel and then place the hand crank next to it like that. And from there, we can now place gravel into here. I believe we just drop it in like so. You'll see at the top there that it does show us how much gravel is in. And then from there, we can just rotate the crank. You'll see this begins to sift the gravel. And once that's done, it should, I don't know if it's going to output the pieces or if it's just going to store them until we right click. I think it's going to store them until we right click. It is. You'll see we have 1 nugget of experience. If I right click, I get that nugget of experience out. Nice. And so this is kind of like the general process. What we're going to do next time, chat, we'll come back and we'll begin working on a couple of different things. Look at the animation in the middle there. It just eats the apple, which is real nifty. But what we'll do next time, we will come back and we'll start looking at automating the production of the rotational energy from Create. We'll get the water wheels potentially up and running so we can automate this so we don't have to stand and manually crank it. We'll also look at making this faster because right now it's particularly slow. And from there, we'll also look, I think, at automating the production of gravel so we can automate the whole kind of lineup from producing the cobblestone to crushing it into gravel, to sifting that gravel into the items that we want. We'll also get some more multi-blocks by the looks of it from industrial foregoing, so like the blast furnace looks like it's on the horizon. And yeah, we'll just generally kind of progress further forward with the pack, get some automation up and running, build out some more platforms, hopefully get enough iron to make this into a hopping botany pot so that we can get even more of these dark oak logs and kind of finish up the design language of our platform here. But all of those are problems for a future Isaac. For now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of Sky Revolutions there.